We are joined on the line, as usual, by our presenter, John Stinchcombe from Kofax, waiting to commence this week's webinar, Optimising Fee Earner Performance and Productivity. So I shall now hand you over to him. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, James. Thank you very much for the intro. This session is about fee earner performance and productivity, which is a key topic around our industry. Fee earner productivity is of great interest to all law firms, but particularly those in the ABS style, the alternate business structure, where they operate on very high volumes of cases and typically a fixed fee case basis that they bid for. And so getting a low cost base and managing costs is critical, as well as ensuring that fee earners are not held up by trivial non-value added tasks. So moving on to the agenda, 3 topics and a conclusion. First one, we're going to run through the key challenges that face law firms when they're debating this topic of productivity and performance. And then the area of focus is what tasks can we automate? How can we eliminate non-value added tasks? How self-service, client enablement can help with the whole productivity piece. Leveraging greater data sets from unstructured data and documents, and then the role that analytics and business intelligence brings to this whole area. An overview of some other considerations and then a conclusion. So what are the fee earner productivity challenges for law firms? Well, the first one is valuable time is often wasted on non-value added tasks and processes. Because law firms are steeped in tradition, they have prescribed ways of doing things, it's all too easy to slip into the mode of we've always done it that way, so we'll continue that way. What we're seeing is evidence of a new generation of fee earners that are really rejecting the notion that everything has to be on paper and that paper is critical to everything. So one of the areas is the whole digitization of work and documents and the tools that go along with that. So much of what I'm going to speak about today, everything I talk about today, assumes that we're in a digital environment. So the need to fully cross-reference inbound documents with case references, that's a challenge in itself. If you're, irrespective of the law firm, one of the key things for inbound documentation is making sure that it gets the right people quickly and securely. A lot of cases are obviously private in nature, sensitive in nature, and traditionally that's been the domain of the post room, where long-standing staff, personnel only have to take a look at the letter. They don't even have to read it to seemingly understand who it's destined for, not only the group or the team, but also the individual fee earner involved in it. However, as we expand the size of law firms and become more distributed and the need to go digital, that personal touch often disappears. We can't assume that the person opening the post has been with the firm for 10 years plus and instinctively knows where documents should go. So one of the issues when you move digital is to ensure that we're able to cross-reference these documents with case or matter references. What we don't want to have is for inbound documents and unstructured information, whether they be emails, attachments, or other sources such as direct connections to business partners and clients. What we don't want is for those to go into a black hole of process. These individual cases and tasks can't be tracked and monitored for the purpose of improving productivity and attaining SLAs. And so one of the challenges is really just unpicking it and understanding where these process bottlenecks actually occur. Part of the role of a fee earner, where they really earn their crust, is to review and consider information. And that information is generally unstructured. We're not planning to take that part away, far from it. However, embedded in unstructured information in inbound documents is structured information. And historically, law firms have not disassembled documents to get to these critical elements. For example, there may be a due date or a must submit by date, or a cross-reference to a third party, or a variety of other pieces of structured information, that it would be useful to have presented in a way of a sort of case summary or document summary alongside the unstructured information. That, along with metadata, such as the date and time that it arrived at the firm, the originating email address, or where in the firm it was received and at what time it was digitized. All very useful information for monitoring cases and for looking at audit trails. Management of workloads and prioritizing the optimum mix of fee earner time. Well, case management and practice management systems absolutely address some of this, but very often business process management systems are better geared up for scheduling of ad hoc tasks in a timely manner. If you look at the task and process of bringing inbound documents into a case environment, there's a lot of sorting, prioritizing, data entry, a whole lot of stuff goes around that. And so one of the keys to this is management of workloads, making sure that the appropriate people and resource are devoted to those particular tasks. It's a disaster in my book if a fee earner is required to do extensive data entry before they can actually review the document. Similarly, you wouldn't expect an administrator to start looking through a document and touching on the areas that a fee earner should be involved with. Similarly, if an inbound document contains information that suggests that it's a high priority or a escalating case, some of that can be automated and automatically trigger parallel review by a senior member of the team. So these are some of the challenges. Traditionally, the tasks involved in bringing inbound documents into an organization have been rather loose. They've been based on convention and previous practice rather than best practice, and invariably errors or omissions could creep in times of peak volume or new starters or a new business venture for the law firm. And so one of the things that we can do is systemize the verification and validation of information so that we can avoid these errors and omissions in the first place. Reducing travel time, this really is a nod to the fact that historically law firms were paper-driven and fee earners often would pitch up at an office where the paper and the team is congregated, or they may be working on a case away from the office but feel the need to go back to the file from time to time. If we can digitize the case and all cases, then it's much, much easier for fee earners to be able to reference either previous cases or documents in the same case. And this is a really important one. The last one is improved job satisfaction and outcomes. No fee earner, when they're up against it, likes looking for a lost document. No fee earner likes data entry unless they want to use it as thinking time. They like reviewing documents and adding value through their knowledge and training. And so improving job satisfaction and outcomes is a really key element to improving productivity and performance. So I showed this screen last time. It's from AIM, an industry trade body for information management, who do a lot of research, and 38% of respondents showed that they get an ROI from digital mailroom within 12 months and 60% within 18 months. This is across the board. I suspect that in knowledge-based disciplines such as law and legal services, that ROI could be a lot higher than that. So automation of tasks and process. Let's look at email capture. Email is increasing, paper is reducing a little bit, which is inevitable and a good thing, as long as it's properly controlled and there are suitable data protection governance mechanisms in place. The great thing about email automation is it's very well established. And what I mean by email automation is instead of administrators or fee earners themselves monitoring an Exchange or Outlook client, a system does this for you. And various email boxes can be automatically monitored. The email and attachments picked up, converted to a format of your choice or kept in their original form, and then classified and indexed for export to case management, content management, workflow, and practice management. So the great thing about this is we're getting a normalized stream of documents. If your corporate standard, your firm standard is PDFs that are searchable, then everything that comes through the door, including Word documents or Excel spreadsheets, are stored in the repository as Excel along with the original. So it means that for reviewing documents, you can use tools that are very familiar with you without the fear of altering a Word document, for example. They're good candidates for classification and auto-indexing. They very often have never seen paper, although, of course, this category of inbound documents could be paper that's been scanned by the client and then scanned to email. It scales very well and is very fast. So Kofax and DCS have a number of customers who are monitoring over 2 million emails per annum. It takes very little time to classify and auto-index documents, attachments and inbound documents. So what are the productivity improvements? They're pre-staged into case management and document management. It means that the fee earner doesn't have to switch between applications. They don't have to sit in Outlook. They can be case-centric or matter-centric, and we're getting this normalized view of everything. It's a very clean way of working, particularly if you're into high-volume cases. As I say there, it eliminates application switching and the so-called digital distraction, which is, you monitor email, waiting for an email to come in pertaining to a particular case. You see another email from an interesting client, and you pursue that, and that's digital distraction if ever there was one. So what's the realistic productivity increase? Well, a minimum of 5% of time saving, possibly higher than that if you do a detailed study. So task automation, digitizing paper. How can we digitize paper to improve things? There are two areas to this. It involves document scanning, either batch or ad hoc. Batch is where mailroom, for example, or postroom documents are assembled into batches. Typically, a document separator is put between each document, and then they're scanned on a high-speed dedicated scanner. Ad hoc tends to be one document at a time or document-centric, either at a personal scanner on an administrator or PA's desk, or as the picture indicates, on an MFD or MFP. We automate document separation either using barcoded header sheets or through other mechanisms. We can classify documents so we can determine what they are and what they refer to, and then we can automate the data extraction, enabling us to match against client matter references. We can also look up the sender of the letter or document against a sender's table. We can extract dates and any other structured information, including flag words and phrases, maybe a complaint, maybe an escalation, maybe a reference to another fee earner or a third party in the case. Kofax has about a dozen individual locators, as we call them, in our data extraction solution, making it very extensible in terms of trying to find structured information in unstructured documents. And then typically these are rendered as fully searchable PDF documents, albeit retaining the look and feel of the original. So typically it's a composite PDF comprising of the image with the sender's letterhead and masthead signatures, any margin notes in the side, any underlinings. It's a complete look and feel of the original scanned image, but behind the scenes there's this layer of extracted data OCR text that allows tools like Adobe or SharePoint or other content management or case management systems to do a full text retrieval in the background. Productivity improvements, well, fee earners teams get documents without delays. So in the time that it takes to wheel physical documents around a larger firm, medium to large scale firm, they can be scanned, auto-indexed, and uploaded to case management. If the firm is distributed, then obviously there's a much faster opportunity to do that. So we can eliminate geographical barriers with this method, even if the paper is received at a branch level or local level. We can scan it there, upload it to a central data system, have the information extracted, the document classified, and then made available to the case management system for any fee earner, irrespective of where they're based, to collaborate and participate. We can also redact information along the way. So in the same way that we're able to locate keyword and index field information, we can also locate information that you may want redacted. So you have very little control over what a client sends you, and so they may inadvertently send you a document containing, for example, a credit card reference. Kofax is smart enough to be able to find credit card numbers or bank account numbers and optionally redact them. PCI compliance requires that documents are not stored with credit card details intact. Finally, paper-based information is reusable. This layer, this text layer, is supplemented with a text file that can be simply used in a cut and paste style if you're rejigging a contract or agreement that has been presented to you in paper. Then this process can yield a text file that can be used for information reuse. And this whole process really enables collaboration and working on case files. So web interaction, this is an interesting one. So very often in a day's work, a fee earner, paralegal, or administrator will be required to look up things on the web. Depending on the case, it could be looking up a claims portal or the Ministry of Justice personal injury portal, or any portal. The examples are many and multifold. One thing we can do, though, is we can automate those lookups so that we're able to shield the user, shield the fee earner or the administrator from the task of going into different websites and going into various portals and doing this repetitive entering of information from perhaps a case management system, or downloading a PDF file and dragging it across to a case management screen or content management screen. We're able to automate that behind the scenes using what are called robots that are programmed or configured, I should say, to do this over and over again. The robots communicate with the front office systems like case management and content management and BPM using standard APIs. And so the development team in a law firm would simply call a web service that would then trigger the robot to go off and do a standardized task. Now, I've spoken to a number of law firms, particularly in the intellectual property space, and they spend their life looking for web-based infringements of intellectual property and trademarks. This is a boom to them. But even, in other opportunities or in other situations, there is opportunity to automate through the use of these robots. And so, as it says there, we can configure in minutes or hours rather than days or weeks. We don't need API-level access to the websites. We can go in as a user. We've got some customers who update their clients' information systems, provided that those information systems are web-enabled. So the productivity improvements are, it shields fee earner teams from this data entry, transposing of information that's already there. Even going into a website and entering several pieces of information takes minutes. That can be done in milliseconds, and the user doesn't actually see the website, which is a good thing. It avoids Fee Earner teams to use multiple back-end systems, and it's easy to achieve up to a 30% improvement in productivity relative to hopping around different websites. But also, it's not a productivity gain, but it's a service gain. Because robots are doing the heavy lifting, you have the opportunity to go to far more websites to glean the information. So real key task automation gains here. So just really a review of non-value added tasks, and these typically blight law firm processes. As I've mentioned before, rekeying or transcribing of data between systems. We can largely eliminate this through robots and through automation in the first place. We don't have to read a document and then find it in the case management system to link the two. We can do that automatically. Whether those documents are presented as paper, emails, attachments, or whether they're documents that are buried inside a web portal. Switching between multiple back-end systems is painful, it's distracting, it's not really the way streamlined systems should be working. Fee Earners should be case-oriented and really focused on case management side of things when they're not looking at documents and reviewing information. Because we are automating, classifying, and indexing these documents automatically, we're able to prioritize and triage documents so that the important ones get pushed to the front, rather than somebody working through a list and then finding that towards the bottom of the list was a very, very important court document, for example. And of course, searching through physical documents or files, or even scanned images, if we can cross-reference, if we can extract structured information from documents in the first place, we're able to get to data much, much faster. Things like logging document-centric activities against clients' records for time recording, we can do that as an automated process, as a combination of extracting information. We can also push the information back across to these time recording systems. Scrutinizing documents, irrespective of their format, to identify changes or red flag terms and phrases. Now, we're not suggesting that we automate the SRA review process, but certainly from a customer service point of view and from a streamlining point of view, we can dramatically improve the visibility of so-called red flag terms and phrases. And then recording all available metadata and index data. Sometimes in an audit or a data warehousing exercise, you may want to store a much larger data set than you would practically be able to do so in a paper environment. So self-service, what if you could completely eliminate the need to process paper in the first place? Often, we can ask clients to submit their own documents through a web portal and use their own scanning devices, MFPs, or even their smartphones. The way this works is that COFAX and DCS provide some tools to allow websites to be configured to accept either scanned images or electronic documents automatically. They're very, very secure. These systems typically don't store any scanned image on the sending PC or workstation. And we can't get away from smartphones and tablets. The good thing about them, contemporary smartphones and tablets, is they have excellent photographic capabilities. It's a really hot feature inside them. We can exploit that to capture a very, very legible scanned image at 300 dots per inch, making it fully OCRable, and we can capture a lot of metadata along the way. This is being used very extensively in insurance and financial services, The solution's been out for about 3.5 years, mostly in the US, although it ranges across many, many applications in Europe as well. So something I would urge you to consider, particularly those with private clients that may want to snap an agreement or a document for their lawyer to have a look at ahead of a meeting, for example. So very, very convenient. The built-in metadata such as location services and MAC address, telephone number, and device number helps in counter fraud as well. So broadening the scope of legal services, this really is being able to offer clients the option of submitting far more documents than they would have originally. So this is a very effective way of achieving that end. Alternatively, through BPM, we can push requests via secure HTML5 forms to truncate unstructured information in the first place. So if you're asking for a client to submit confirmation or additional information, then sending out a form to do that in a structured way means that we can just eliminate the whole email and unstructured information iteration, if you like. So that's very, very prone to error, prone to delays, costs a lot to manage. Using structured information certainly saves that. So each of these permit real-time verification to ensure client submits the correct information, saving fear and their team involvement. There's nothing worse than asking for something, a client misunderstands you, returns the wrong thing. Before you know it, 12 hours has gone by and there's been a lot of time, effort, and money expended, as well as frustration. For example, in the smartphone application, we're able to request that a particular document is submitted. Behind the scenes, we can classify and extract that data from that document, check it's the correct document, the correct time, date. We can check for the existence of a signature, for example. At the time, the client still has the smartphone app open, and then we can give some near real-time feedback to the client to say, yes, you've submitted the right thing, you're good to go. So leveraging data sets, automating the capture of data increases the available data sets above and beyond what would have been practical or cost-effective in the old days with paper documents. So provides greater structured information for verification, data warehousing, and analysis. Improves levels of information reuse, so we're able to home into cases that are similar to some active cases, for example, and then traps errors and omissions earlier and before fee earner team involvement. In other words, fee earners can be given high-quality information with a lot of errors and omissions removed from them. And then process and content analytics. This is a very hot topic for Kofax. A lot of our clients process business-critical documents in high volumes, and so the availability of process and content analytics really helps focus on the task in hand. These prescribed processes we can hook into extract key data points or metrics so that we can analyze processes. We can show a rolling 90-day or 60-day or 30-day average. We can see how we're performing from an exceptions point of view at any time in near real time as well, so that we're able to see on a dashboard how we're adhering to our SLA attainments. A lot of legal cases have extensive collaboration both inside and outside of the firm, and so a lot of tasks that need to be coordinated, and process analytics helps us to see the bottlenecks and any other issues that might be stopping that. So specifically, where processes have followed a less than optimal path. If a process or a task involves approval, but it's gone round that approvals process a few times rather than just once, then it might be worth reviewing that particular aspect of the process. And then understanding and presenting the mix and volumes of inbound documents gives your teams a clue as to what's ahead of them during the working day or week. Very often, the first thing you hear of a change in a case is an increase in a particular type of document type or information. And then we can aggregate weeks and months of process data into dashboards very simply so that you can very, very quickly review, as I mentioned before, your position relative to SLAs and things in previous weeks and months. So we're on to the conclusion. Kofax with DCS offer ways of transforming business-critical documents from a variety of systems of engagement and allowing you the option of or the ability to update your systems of record in the background, whether those be case management systems, content management systems, practice management systems, and so on. And so the whole idea is to improve customer service and improve ultimately fee earner productivity. A few closing remarks. One of the key objectives for you should be to analyze low value added tasks, bottlenecks and redundant processes with a view to improving them and thus improving fee earner productivity. Paper can coexist. We're not suggesting we take paper away entirely, but electronic images correctly indexed and referenced should be the primary approach for information storage, management and governance. By all means, use paper as a temporary store, perhaps as a working set, but certainly the electronic images of the originals should be retained. Automation tools are now mainstream. They're very well established and low risk. Classification, data extraction is very widely deployed across many, many industries. And I think the legal industry could do well with picking up some of the successes of other industries. Then I discussed at one point software robots. This avoids application switching and this whole tedious staging of a request on a website. We're able to shield fee earners and their teams from the web where necessary and automate not only retrieval of information but updating of information so that it's a behind the scenes activity. And then finally, we mustn't forget truncating paper at source to reduce errors, delays and costs. And this can improve customer engagement and service through involvement. With that, I will pass back over to James. I thank you for your attention, and we're now ready to take any questions.
Hello, and thank you, John. Yes, there's just one question this week, a fairly wide-ranging one concerning the take-up of these solutions in the legal sector. The question is, how widely are these tools / products / solutions installed in law firms at present?
That's a good question. Actually, I did review the numbers recently, and we have about 100 UK law firms using Kofax products across the whole set. Drilling down, I would probably suggest that around 25 of them are using automation in the form of our classic KTM for classification and auto-indexing. So the vast majority are still scanning, digitizing, converting to searchable PDFs, and then manually indexing those into case management. About 25% would be using the more advanced automation tools. I'm unaware off the top of my head of any using the robots, although I'm frantically thinking of a use case or an example, I should say. There's a lot in insurance, and as a lot of law firms do outsource insurance defense work, then I can absolutely see the link there. Of course, there are law firms using robots in intellectual property. I beg your pardon. So there are about 3 that I can think of on the intellectual property side. So hope that answers the question.